What's going on, guys? Welcome to the video. As you all know by now, Boris Johnson plans to prorogue Parliament on the 10th of September in order to hold a Queen's speech on October the 14th. This will allow him to lay out the government's domestic agenda, like the NHS, policing and so on. Of course, the Remainer MPs are up in arms about this because they know the Queen has to accept his request, since saying no would politicise her and out her as a Remainer, which would not go down well with the people who are not fans of our monarch. So she would not do this. She has never said no to a Prime Minister before, and she won't now either. We are going to take a look at a clip from the Victoria Derbyshire programme this morning that features the Guido Fawkes journalist and Brexiteer Tom Harwood and former Labour MP and Remoaning traitor Margaret Beckett. She has a title, but since she acts against the democratic wishes of the British public, she does not deserve it in my opinion, so I won't use it. As you will all guess, she is not happy with the idea of proroguing Parliament and cannot hide her contempt for what Tom Harwood says before she comes on. So let's check out the first clip.
OK, let's go back to the announcement that the government is expected to suspend Parliament ahead of a Queen's speech on the 14th of October, which could deny MPs the time to try to stop a no-deal Brexit. We can talk now to Guido Fawkes, who joins us on the line. Oh, it's Tom Harwood from Guido Fawkes' website.
Well, guys, there is the level of stupidity you expect from the Victoria Derbyshire programme. She is talking to Guido Fawkes. What an idiot. Even Tom has a little laugh at their incompetence before she checks her cards and gets it right. Too much Ramona rage going around in her head today to remember who she's talking to, I guess.
Tom, thank you very much for joining us. The political website, of course, Guido Fawkes. OK, what's your reaction to this?
Well, this seems like very good news. It's what Brexiteers up and down the country have been hoping for, really. It seems like we've got a Prime Minister who's on our side, who's willing to take on those vested interests in Parliament, that coalition of politicians trying to frustrate the will of the people, and a Prime Minister who's ready to get on with a domestic agenda, which I think is what a lot of people in the country have been crying out for a very long time. This has been the longest parliamentary session for quite some time. It's almost 3 years without a new Queen's speech. So being able to have that short prorogation, that new Queen's speech, setting out a new domestic agenda, but also limiting the time for silly games to be played in Parliament, seems like a very sensible thing to do at this stage.
Well, like us, Tom thinks this is a good idea because it now seems Boris is on our side against the undemocratic EU collaborators in Parliament. Brexiteers up and down the country, along with any Remain voters who want to uphold the democratic vote, are going to be buzzing with joy upon hearing this news. We see yesterday only 160 traitorous MPs signed the anti-democratic Church House Agreement, far below the 350-ish MPs needed to be certain their plans would get through. So this could be Boris Johnson's response to that, but this could have been his plan all along also. Like Tom said at the end there, Boris proroguing Parliament not only stops the Remainer MPs playing stupid games to undermine the will of the people, but it also allows him to start getting on with the domestic agenda. That is going to please a lot of people because Brexit is, remember, a temporary issue. People just want it done now so they can move on with the day-to-day issues within the country. Boris is taking heed of that, and also the fact he needs to deliver Brexit. So let's move on to the next clip.
There are, of course, some who'd say that this is a game and this is also anti-democratic. A Prime Minister who was elected by a small number of people in the scheme of things, members of the Tory party, doing something that prevents parliamentary scrutiny, anti-democratic.
Well, it's hardly anti-democratic. If Parliament wants to, it could vote no confidence in the Prime Minister as soon as Parliament returns. Parliament will be sitting for many, many days, actually, before that 31st of October deadline, both before and after the prorogation. So there's time for Parliament to scrutinise, time for Parliament to play some games if they want to, but not as much time as before. And crucially, there's now an impetus to get on with that domestic agenda, which is what people up and down the country really want to see.
The message of the Leave campaign was take back control. When MPs are basically being made to sit on their hands for a period of time in the run-up to one of the most crucial moments, of course, in our history, that deadline on the 31st of October. Is that taking back control?
Absolutely, it will enable us to take back control. This prorogation is actually shorter than the prorogation that John Major went into at the end of his term as Prime Minister. Various Prime Ministers throughout our history have done this. This is not a new or novel idea. Attlee did it when he was putting forward his new raft of nationalisation reforms. There's plenty of precedent for something like this to be done. And it will enable us to take back control, as you rightly say, over our laws, over our money, over our borders, over our trade, be able to take back control over our whole raft of new policies in our domestic and international economy. And that can make everyone in this country better off down the line. But we first need to get over that Brexit hurdle, and this news today will make it all the more likely that we do.
Tom Harwood from the Guido Fawkes website, thank you.
So we hear the host parroting what Remona MPs have said about proroguing Parliament being anti-democratic, when actually it's one of the few democratically given executive powers the Prime Minister has. Most things he needs the approval of Parliament, but some things, like asking the Queen to suspend Parliament in order to have the first Queen's speech in 3 years, is his democratic right to do. The same as him suspending it to deliver on what people voted for. The Queen is never going to deny her Prime Minister his wish to do what her citizens have requested the government to do. So he could have done that, but he's not this time. Tom points out it can't be anti-democratic since Parliament can table a vote of no confidence still if it really does not like what Boris Johnson is doing, either before or after the prorogation. Boris is just limiting the time they have to stop Brexit, the same way they are doing all they can to limit what he can do to deliver Brexit. The ever-impartial BBC host then goes on about the Leave campaign's message that said, "Take back control," making out like Boris proroguing Parliament goes against that message. Is she completely brain dead or something? That message was to take back control from the EU. It had nothing to do with traitors within our own country. When that message was put out in 2016, they likely did not expect the level of Brexit derangement syndrome we have seen since. Plus, the Remona MPs are acting like EU MPs, so we should take control from them. Hopefully we have an election soon, and most, if not all of these MPs are deselected for being traitors to this country. Tom points out John Major prorogued Parliament for longer than Boris Johnson plans to when he was the Prime Minister, along with various other Prime Ministers doing the same thing before the shitweasel John Major did it. So it's nothing new. Both sides have done it in the past, and I expect both will do it in the future. Tom's hopeful it will enable us to take back control of everything if we can get Brexit over the line. Now let's move on to the next clip and see what the traitorous cumbucket Margaret Beckett had to say in response to what Tom has said in the previous few clips we've looked at.
Let's talk now to the former Deputy Leader of the Labour Party, Dame Margaret Beckett, joining us on the line. Welcome, thanks for joining us. What's your reaction?
Thank you. I've seldom heard such a bunch of sanctimonious claptrap as you just had from that young man. And as for citing a precedent of a timing of prorogation from people like Attlee, Boris Johnson has been in Parliament as Prime Minister for what, 48 hours? And then he's going to try and make sure Parliament doesn't sit for weeks? I mean, I have never heard anything. And the notion that that should be defended as taking back control, yes, that's right. It's taking back control into the hands of a government governing without Parliament. That's not unprecedented in our history that the government should try to do it, but the last time it ended in a civil war.
Wow, someone is a right salty spunk trumpet today. Has Boris got your knickers in the twist so you rant and rage at a young Brexiteer, you treacherous dog? This prorogation plan has sent her into shit fits because Boris Johnson has stopped their undemocratic attempts to take control of the order paper, which is what they had all planned to do yesterday at their undemocratic church house meeting. She does not like the fact that Boris Johnson's taking control away from the traitors in Parliament to deliver on a no-deal Brexit if need be. It's a shame they didn't let Tom Harwood respond to this snarling, spitting imbecile though. Instead, she goes unchallenged and claims the last time someone did this, it ended in the Civil War. Is she for real? I thought it was World War II that this was similar to, or are they changing it as they go now? Make your minds up, Ramonas. Next, a no-deal Brexit will be worse than the bubonic plague, or probably caused it. Let's move on though.
If MPs don't like it, we were just hearing from Tom Harwood, they can have a vote of no confidence straight away and see what happens.
One of the things I think is most revealing about this is that if the Prime Minister wanted to apply for prorogation, there's nothing to stop him from waiting until Parliament had returned from the summer recess, at least 24 or 48 hours, and then apply. This is a government without a majority. It's a Prime Minister who was never elected by the public, and he is moving for this exploiting the constitutional rules and procedures, exploiting the Queen, putting the Queen in the most disgraceful position, really, putting her in a very awkward position politically, in order for him to have his own way and to prevent Parliament. The whole point, they said, was to give power back to Westminster. Well, power's not coming back to Westminster. Power's just coming back to Downing Street, is what it looks like to me.
So the host points out what Tom said earlier about the Remoaners having the chance to vote down the government if they want to. But for some reason, Margaret ignores that Remoaners way out to complain Boris should have prorogued Parliament on a different date, because that would make a great deal of difference somehow. If he prorogues Parliament earlier than September the 10th, he can just extend it to any day he wants. John Major's already shown us that before. Because as we all know, John Major prorogued Parliament for longer than Boris Johnson plans to. Major called an election in 1997 and held the election on the 1st of May, which he lost, so it was like 6 or 7 weeks after calling it. Boris Johnson proroguing Parliament earlier still would not help these Remoaners in any way, as the Queen's speech could still be done on October the 14th, as is currently planned. She then moans about Boris Johnson not being elected by the public, which to be honest I don't think she would want anyway, because I expect him to get a decent majority in a general election, which means a no-deal Brexit would be a dead certain. He could pass that through the House of Commons without issue, and we could leave well before Halloween. She then goes on to make the ridiculous claim that he is exploiting the Queen and putting her in a disgraceful position, which is complete bollocks obviously. The Queen will do what her Prime Minister asks her to do. She does not need to think about it, it's more ceremonial than anything else, because she cannot say no and politicise herself like I've said before. No Queen's speech in 3 years means one is overdue, so Boris is well within his right to ask for one. Technically, he could have prorogued Parliament, as I said, until the 1st of November, and I think he should have, so she should realistically be happy with this. Let's move on to the final clip though.
What do you want your party to do?
I think it's an open question as to whether the best approach is to go now for an early vote of no confidence, because what happens if in the middle of this the Prime Minister loses a vote of no confidence, and of course no one knows whether he would or not, but suppose he does. Is he going to ignore it? I mean, the proposal is for a Queen's speech. And that young man, whoever he was, who was rattling on about how many days Parliament has got, this is deliberately designed to make sure that Parliament does not have any days, that it does not have, they hope, time to do anything to stop what is genuinely a constitutional outrage. When I first heard what was being suggested, I genuinely did not believe it. And I still can hardly believe that any elected member of Parliament is behaving in this outrageous way. But I tell you what, people have been saying, let's wait and see what Boris does. Yes, we're already beginning to see. And it's not about giving power back to the people. It's about, what did he say as a child? He wanted to be world king. But he's making a damn good start.
The host asks what the Labour Party plans to do about this. It seems she has no idea what to do when it comes down to it, because I think they all know there is fuck all they can do about it. She knows Boris is now actively working to stop these traitors from delaying Brexit again, because Boris actually believes in democracy and knows his political career and reputation are on the line like never before. Her claims that this is a constitutional outrage are funny though, considering most of these traitorous MPs got elected on manifestos to deliver Brexit and now don't want to, which makes it a constitutional and democratic outrage against citizens of this country. These Remoaners are lucky the Queen does not get involved in politics, because she would obviously have to support what the majority voted for in 2016, and there are rumours she actually favoured leaving the European Union, which would make sense since she wants her sovereign nation to remain that, her sovereign nation, the same as we do. Margaret can hardly believe the situation though. Well bitch, you better believe it because it's fucking happening. We know you don't believe in democracy, so it's no surprise to us you feel this way, Margaret. You're a disgrace to this nation and a traitor. She finished up claiming Boris Johnson is making a good start at becoming world king, which is completely ridiculous. Proroguing Parliament to get a Queen's speech has been done countless times before, and none of them ever became world king, did they? They likely ended up out of office like John Major did, so I don't know what you're talking about. Where do these Remoaners get this shit from? It's incredible. Well, to sum that up, Margaret Beckett was not a happy spunk trumpet after hearing what our Brexiteer friend Tom Harwood had to say. She was absolutely enraged he was allowed to tell the BBC viewers the truth about Boris Johnson's plan, and just resorted to talking complete shit throughout the interview. So about what we expect from Ramonas these days. Well, I'm going to end the video there. I just want to thank the channel's PayPal, Patreon and Subscribe members for supporting the channel, along with everyone who watches my videos. Remember to let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Leave a like, subscribe with the notification bell and share this video as it helps the channel a lot. And I will see you all in the next one.